I never thought about it before, but professional wrestling is a vital cultural link between Japan and the rest of the world. Pro wrestling isn't exactly mainstream in Japan, but it does have a deep following and a sizable industry behind it. Not unlike America, a few professional wrestlers rode waves of popularity into elected office. In the 1990s, Japanese developers created the most popular pro wrestling games for the N64. Asmic Entertainment and Aki Corporation combined to develop titles that released worldwide with official licenses from WCW, NWO, and the WWF. This partnership also produced the Virtual Pro Wrestling series that focused on Japanese leagues and wrestlers with the occasional foreigner. The series contains 2 games developed for the N64, which only came out in Japan. The first game, Virtual Pro Wrestling 64, released in 1997. It is the Japanese cousin of WCW vs NWO World Tour. They're both identical in most ways other than the rosters. Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 has a referee sprite just to remind you that the game is Japanese. I don't really watch or know anything about professional wrestling. I know that it's fake, and so does everyone else. I've always been captivated by the spectacle of wrestling, the massive stage entrances, the storylines, the drama. Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 lacks those elements, unfortunately. After all, there is only just so much an N64 game can do. The gameplay is pretty fun and accessible while having a technical depth to it that casual players can ignore if they want, instead focusing on grappling the opponent and knocking them out after a prolonged brawl. This core system of grappling doesn't change much in the sequel, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, Oudou Keishou. Released in 2000 as the Japanese counterpart of Wrestlemania 2000, which came out in Japan anyway, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 is almost the same game as its predecessor. The models are supposed to look improved, but wrestlers look like their heads were baked longer than their body. Matches begin with drawn-out entrances that touch upon the drama of wrestling. As far as I can tell, there isn't any difference in the entrances of the characters besides a minor variation in animation. Having now played my first ever wrestling games, I definitely get the sense of brutality that the sport inflicts. The combat is much more personal and frankly more violent than anything I've played before. It's weird to say that these games, where you don't kill anybody, feel more visceral than say GoldenEye or Perfect Dark, where you carry a gun and kill hundreds of people in a single level. In Virtual Pro Wrestling, the combatants show the wear of the match. Rounds go on for a long time and can easily go beyond 5 or 10 minutes depending on your skill. So your wrestlers end up bloodied and battered, and it's only after beating on your opponent for a while that you'll actually have the chance to knock them out. Virtual Pro Wrestling, as a series, managed to recreate the theater of wrestling in both its glory and its pain. Thanks for watching, and mahalo!